Before we begin, imagine finding a single flower on your doorstep every night. No note, no name, no explanation, just delicate pink petals that seem to appear from nowhere. Tulip. At first it feels romantic. Then mysterious. Then, terrifying. Because one night, the petals arrive covered in rain and blood. If you love emotional mystery stories with shocking twists, hit subscribe right now and stay with us until the end, because this story will take you somewhere you never expected. The first petal appeared on a quiet Tuesday night in the city of Portland, drifting gently onto the wooden steps outside Elena Carter's small apartment like it had been carried by a secret meant only for her. And when she opened the door after hearing the faintest tapping against the wood, she thought at first it was nothing more than debris blown by the wind, but the moment she bent down and picked it up she realized it was different. Soft and warm against her fingertips, the pale pink color glowing faintly beneath the yellow porch light like something alive, and though the street outside was empty and silent she felt an odd sensation that someone had been standing there only seconds before she opened the door, watching her, waiting, and then disappearing into the night. Elena laughed it off that night, placing the petal in a small glass dish on her kitchen counter before making tea and returning to her laptop to finish editing a music blog post about underground synth bands she loved, the soft electronic sound of Chromatics filling the room while rain tapped against the windows like distant applause. And by the time midnight arrived she had forgotten the petal entirely until she noticed the faint fragrance drifting across the room, sweet and nostalgic, like the garden her grandmother used to keep when Elena was a child, and she found herself staring at the tiny fragment of flower wondering how something so small could feel so strangely important. The second petal arrived the next night. This time it rested neatly in the center of the doorstep like it had been placed there deliberately, not dropped, not blown by the wind. And when Elena stepped outside to look around the street she saw nothing but wet pavement reflecting the glow of distant traffic lights and the flickering neon sign of a closed diner down the block, yet somewhere in the distance she thought she heard footsteps retreating quickly into an alley. By the fourth night there were 3 petals waiting for her. And by the 7th night there was a full flower. Elena should have been frightened, but something about the ritual felt strangely comforting, like someone out there was silently telling her she mattered. And after years of living alone in the city, writing about music that few people read and drifting through relationships that never seemed to last longer than a season, the presence of the mysterious petals felt like a quiet promise that somewhere beyond the noise of the world someone was paying attention to her life. Still, curiosity slowly turned into obsession. She began checking the door earlier each evening, sometimes opening it suddenly as if hoping to catch the stranger in the act. But every time the porch was empty except for the flower waiting patiently beneath the light, and the more she searched the neighborhood the more she felt like the giver of the petals knew exactly how to avoid her. Until the night she found 2 sets of footprints in the rain. One set led toward her door. The other led away quickly, as if the person had run. And beside the final footprint was a single crushed petal stained dark red. That was the night Elena realized this wasn't a romantic mystery anymore. Someone had been hurt. Or worse. The next morning she brought the petals to a small flower shop owned by an elderly man named Victor who had spent decades studying rare plants, and when she placed them carefully on the counter his gentle smile faded slowly into something more serious as he examined them beneath the soft white light hanging from the ceiling. "These aren't ordinary flowers," he said quietly. Elena felt a chill. "They're night camellias," Victor continued. "Very rare. They only bloom for a few hours after midnight, and they grow in exactly one place near this city." "Where?" she asked. Victor hesitated before answering. "The old Rosewood estate." Elena had heard of it before, though not in years. A mansion abandoned decades earlier after a tragedy that locals rarely talked about. Some said a musician had lived there once, a brilliant composer who vanished without explanation after his wife died in a mysterious accident, leaving the house to rot slowly beneath tangled vines and broken windows while rumors grew around it like weeds. And according to Victor, the only place in Oregon where night camellias grew was in the forgotten greenhouse behind that mansion. Elena should have walked away. But something about the story pulled at her curiosity the same way the petals had. So that night, with rain falling softly across the empty roads, she drove toward the edge of the city where the Rosewood estate stood hidden behind rusted gates and towering trees, the headlights of her car slicing through darkness until the outline of the mansion finally appeared like a ghost rising from the forest. The place looked frozen in time. Windows shattered. Balconies collapsing. The faint sound of wind moving through the broken structure like distant music. And somewhere behind it, a faint glow of light inside the greenhouse. Alina's heart pounded as she stepped out of the car and followed a narrow stone path toward the garden, the air thick with the scent of flowers blooming in the darkness, and when she reached the glass doors of the greenhouse she saw someone inside standing among rows of camellias illuminated by a single lantern. A man, tall, still, silent, holding a fresh flower in his hand. For a moment neither of them moved. Then he spoke quietly without turning around. "I was wondering when you would come." Elena froze. "You knew it was me." He nodded slowly. "I've been leaving Petals for you for weeks." "Why?" she asked. The man finally turned, revealing tired eyes and a face that seemed both young and impossibly old at the same time. "Because," he said softly, "you're the only person who still listens to my music." Confusion rushed through her mind. What music? The man gestured toward the mansion behind them. "I wrote songs here once, long ago. Songs that no one remembers anymore." And then Elena realized something impossible. She recognized him, not from real life, but from an old photograph she had once used in a blog post about forgotten artists of the 1980s. A musician who had disappeared 30 years earlier. A man officially declared dead. Yet standing right in front of her beneath the glow of the greenhouse lantern. Alive, and holding another camellia petal between his fingers like a fragile secret waiting to fall. But before Elena could speak again the sound of tires screeching outside shattered the silence, followed by the sharp beam of headlights cutting through the garden and the unmistakable voices of people shouting as they approached the greenhouse. The musician's expression changed instantly from calm to fear. "They found me," he whispered. "Who?" Elena asked. But the answer came before he could speak. Two men stepped into the greenhouse doorway wearing dark coats and cold smiles, their eyes moving slowly from the flowers to Elena and finally to the man beside her like hunters who had finally cornered their prey. One of them spoke quietly. "You should have stayed hidden." The other reached into his coat. And the camellia petals began falling to the floor like pink snow as Elena realized the mystery of the flowers had never been about romance at all. It had been a warning. "If you want, I can also create."